Good evening, citizens. I'm Devoid, and I'm joined today by my dad, Revatheist, and our first returning guest, Phaedron. This is Redacted, a live podcast where we talk about Star Citizen and its development.
And today we're going to talk about what does it take to get started in the game, right? So it's an intense game. There's a lot to know about it. And if
Yeah,
you're coming
we
into it the first time, there's some things that you might like to know.
talked coming up on 2 months now. Our first episode was is it worth getting into? We said yes it is, we've seen an increasing number of people joining since then. Not just our group, but the game in general. Um, what are they up to now? Like
Yep.
several million players with a few 100,000 active at any given time.
Yep. I'm going to
Getting
pretend
up
that it
there.
was because of our podcast. That
Yeah, it's
was
purely our
complete.
fault.
We tipped it over the edge there.
Yeah, completely our fault.
You're welcome, Chris.
Yeah, getting started. So it's if you've started playing Star Citizen anytime recently, I think it goes without saying that
Hold on. Oh no, you did introduce Faye. I apologize. Go
I did. Yeah. If you started playing Star Citizen, I guess if you're watching this, you probably have. I think it goes without saying that the new player experience in general can be kind of rough, right? They only, I guess, a long time ago they had like a tutorial, but the status of the game and what was included was changing so quickly that they just stopped keeping up with it. They
Yeah,
eventually
back
took it
before
out.
it was actually a game, when it was like
Right.
a login and look around. I guess maybe they had a tutorial.
Or something, yeah. Just recently though, they did come up with like another tutorial. I haven't done it myself, Rev. I think you did just today.
Yeah. I wanted to
Um,
refresh myself. The new player experience, they call it. And I mean, it's not awful, right? Um, so I mean, it gets you up, it gets you around, it shows you, hey, you need to eat and drink, right off the bat. Shows you how to do that. Get you out, get you to the hangars, get you on a ship, get you out. So it accomplishes the major things, I think, that are important for you to enjoy the game, which is to get up, get equipped, get in your ship, and fly. So
that's kind of like the number one thing you see in global chat is how do I get out of the hab? How do I get to my ship? How do I
yeah.
take off? So those are the important things to get people started. So that it's good that they put that in. And it's still a work in progress. They're still kind of fleshing out the details of it and improving it over time. I think they expanded it to Microtech as well. So now we have
They did.
and Microtech, and then eventually they'll probably do the other major planets as well.
Yeah. Oh, or yeah.
Yeah, interestingly, when I did it this morning, this afternoon after I got home from work, it didn't give me the option of where to go. It just sent me to New Babbage.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which I thought that was interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, Victor, we'll kind of touch base on that. We'll definitely talk about that. So you said the new player experience, it shows you how to get food, how to get water, how to get to the spaceport. Did it walk you through like equipping weapons or armor or
Oh no,
setting your hospital? It didn't do anything.
It didn't do any. It didn't talk at all. It doesn't take you at all through like setting your hospital bed. One of the first things it does do is say, "Hey, equip your helmet," and then it takes you to a helmet that's in a crate over on the counter. So I mean, there's that.
Well, that's something, right?
Well, and you don't necessarily need to set your medical right away because it's already set to your home location. So once you start pushing further out into the verse, that comes more important. But like all your starting gear is going to be at that starting location anyways. So like that's like a next evolution or a step up. Probably
also,
after you meet other players.
Well, let's starting out though, right? If you're the schlub who said, you know what, I'm going to start off in a free fly. I go in on a free fly, or even I'm just going to go ahead and pay my $35-$40 to get a ship. And you jump into this thing, you got yourself a Mustang, right? And nothing else. And probably should want to, know how to go down to Cubby Blast or, one of the shops to get a little bit of armor, to get a gun.
Right. Also, Clown, thank you for the subscribe. Appreciate that.
Hell yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of important parts to being a new player in Star Citizen that uh, I feel like the new player experience doesn't show, right? So you said they show the core parts, which is good. Wake up, put
They
a helmet
get you
on,
up and get you in a
get
ship.
some food, get some water, get you in a ship, right?
Does it
Um,
does it cover the contracts?
Nope.
Like how to take a mission? No, it doesn't. It doesn't
Nope.
do that.
yeah.
I don't. I might have been not been paying attention when it actually flashed on the screen, and it told me to check my journal, but it didn't tell me how.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So
So
I
that's
think I think
an
that's an important
example of
part.
some of the lack, right?
Yeah.
I think so. I'm just going to describe kind of my ideal new player experience tutorial island kind of thing, right? I feel it should start you off in your hab just like it does, right? You wake up, you're probably in a flight suit like you already are. Maybe or you start off in regular clothes even, right? But it guides you through the inventory system first. You wake up and it says, WASD move, F to interact with things. Maybe it's got like a cup of coffee or something that you can drink right there, ready for you to interact with. Just something so you could figure out your inner thought, right?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it gives you a burrito and a bottle of water.
There you go. So
So that's
that's
good.
fine,
Yep.
right? Then it'll say like, oh, press I to open your inventory. This is before it even lets you out of your hab, right?
Oh,
Open up your
wait.
inventory.
EODO controller is saying that there's a training mission. I didn't get that far. So I may have.
No, that you did. That's remember when I said be careful because it might break your account. That's what I was talking about.
Oh,
Is the new
okay.
player experience mission that you did. But we'll get there. Um, anyway, it should guide you to open your inventory and show you how to navigate that. It's got the filter, it's got the sort button. Doesn't quite work how they want it to yet, but I think you should put it in there. Learn how to navigate that, right? Should you know say, hey, you got to put on a helmet to go in space, so equip this flight suit, equip this helmet. Maybe it gives you a starting piece of armor where you can put on, right? Like, here's your armor, put it on. Maybe I know it gives you an arc light to start. Put that on your hip, put a couple of pieces of like a med pen on your thing. It just walks you through everything to equip, right? Then it'll guide you with an arrow, maybe like above your head. You know how they do
Well,
something intuitive for you
they've
to
got
follow.
the markers, right? The little blue.
Do they?
Yeah. Yeah, and it like
Okay,
says
well
like
that's good.
and the nice thing about that is that they put them on like every next point. So for example, if it's trying to get you down to the the tram, it doesn't just
Mhm.
put the marker at the tram, it puts the marker at the stairs. And then it says,
Okay,
"Oh,
that's
go
good.
down the stairs," right? So it's got
That's good.
several markers along the way,
So it's good that it has that.
yeah.
I think that's important because, yeah, like you said, if it just put it on the stairs, how do we get there, right? ArtCorp has got a bunch of different pathways that you could take, and it's fairly easy to get lost. But anyway, I think it should guide you down to the elevator, show you how to use the elevator, right? It's not that hard. Get in, you get out, and then on let's say we're talking ArtCorp, right? You come out of the apartments and you have this plaza that you can get to, and probably you step out, you got Kasaba right there. It might highlight that, like, buy clothing, and maybe it walks you through buying a set of clothes. And then it'll highlight Cubby Blast. Oh, let's buy a new weapon. Let's buy some crews or some ammo or whatever. Just take you through that inventory screen. Then it'll walk you through and say, oh, maybe it'll come up with a pop-up. Let's experience contracts. Let's go through your Moby-Glass really quick. Learn how to use your map. Learn how to accept a contract. Learn where your journal is. Learn how to modify your ship. Basically, walk you through the Moby-Glass, right?
Yeah.
Then
Well, yeah.
after it gives you like a starting contract, then it should guide you to your ship, show you how to, eventually freight elevators will be in, right? So it'll show you how to call up maybe a different quantum drive or whatever, show you how to swap that out, right? Take you on your ship, show you how to call for takeoff, show you how to fly, give you all
I
the flight controls.
I have a slightly different suggestion on that because one of the things that drives me absolute nuts, even about the shitty little new player experience that we have, is that it's like almost mandatory. You kind of have to go through this process. Step one, step two, step three. What would be more valuable is right off the bat, they say, here's how you access your Moby-Glass, here's how you access your tutorials, and here are the tutorials available for you. What do you want to know how to do right now? Right? Oh, great. I want to know how to get to my ship. Great. Boom. Click it. Boom. It gets you to your ship. Oh,
That's a really good point.
I need to know how to go get some armor and stuff. Great. Here's how you're going to go get your armor, and then it builds that tutorial from where you're at that way. That would
That's
be
a really good
super
suggestion.
valuable, because you don't need to
That is a really
you don't
good
want to
suggestion.
necessarily know absolutely everything about how the game works right off the bat. You're not going to remember it. But to be able to refer back to it and say, "Hey, how do I do this?" Yeah, no problem. We can do that for you and play it. Boom.
Yeah, no, that's a
100%.
great idea. That's a fantastic idea.
Because like
So
one of the things that I do when I start out is I immediately go to the settings and look at the key map and
Yeah.
see what all my defaults are for doing stuff like crouching, jumping, running, walking, and looking at that. That's always my first step when entering any new game.
Yeah.
So highlighting how to get to that, because some people obviously don't know how to get to that.
It'd be nice if they weren't. It'd be nice if they wouldn't be afraid of an occasional dialogue that actually says, "Hey, like instead of just a little flash up at the top of the screen and the little marker, don't be afraid of saying, you know what, your brand's making new. We need to do something extra for you. Boom, here's the screen with some information, or force your arm up and say, "Whoop, oh, here's information you need to know." Okay.
Just a little side piece that doesn't actually affect the functionality.
Yeah,
but I think would be cool.
the notification system still needs a lot of work.
It's rough.
Because
something I think.
If you're not paying attention, you'll miss it, and it's just like a steady stream of useless information that you might not understand starting out. Like, why do I need to know when the commodities market refreshed? Right, every 10 minutes you get that message.
Valid. Just a little side thing that I wanted to piggyback off of what Rev just said about this pop-up, right? Is I think it would be cool, and they probably won't do something like this, but if they changed that dialogue to be like a different person depending on where you spawn in, right? For instance, if you spawn in at like Area 18, right? Maybe it's like Twitch or like the mayor of ArtCorp or whatever, the governor. And if you spawn in like Pyro or something, it's like a gang member who pops up and says, "Hey, check your Moby glass or do this or whatever."
Oh yeah,
that might be kind of cool. Might be kind of cool.
There's all kinds of things they could do. I'd like to pivot just a little bit though, because this episode is about how do you get started, not how would we like people to get started in a theoretical future world where they've done the right thing. So
very good course correction.
What would you say, right? So we get somebody, they get logged in, they've got the new player experience to give them just the bare minimums. What's important for a new player to look for, to try to go take care of early on, so that they can have a better experience overall once they're in the game? We'll talk about how to get in the game and the equipment and stuff. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit later. But once they're in, what are some of those things?
Do we want to touch on how to get started? Like, do you want to wait for a free fly and just take whatever free ships they give you and play around for a week?
Well,
or if you're just ready to jump straight in, do you want to get into what starter package is good for you?
Yeah, so let's talk about right now that we've already gotten in the game, and then once we've kind of talked about that stuff, we can drop in. Okay, great. So when is a good time? Again, what kind of hardware do you need to have if you don't already have it? I think we could probably get that stuff here in just a little bit.
Yeah, we can get to that. Sure. So with the idea that you've got an adequate machine, that you've purchased your starter ship and you're ready to play the game, I think that there's two kind of big points that I think we should drill down. I guess three, right? The first is, even though Star Citizen is completely soloable, you can play it all by yourself with the minimum pack, and you can accomplish pretty much anything you want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
It is way more fun and way more accessible if you play with friends. So I think that step one is maybe join, if you're on like Reddit or Facebook, or if you are familiar with browsing the Discord system, right? Find a group somewhere where you can put out a feeler, try and get a couple of people to play with. Even if it's a small group, you don't need a huge group at first. Even just one extra friend really unlocks a lot.
Well, on that, I mean, so they've done a really good job with the guide system, and it's been a while since I've poked around to see how prevalent it is on the website, but they do have a player guide system that you can go to, and I'll have to find a link to that.
Yeah, it's on Spectrum.
Yeah. We'll provide links to some Facebook groups, to the guide system. We'll provide links to that at the.
But you can actually sign up like, hey, I want to learn how to fly a ship, or just cover the basics, or I want to learn it all. And you can pick from a list of volunteer guides, and you just click on them and sign up, and then it automatically pairs you with them and puts you in a chat, and you can explain, hey, I'm new, I want to learn how to play, and then that guide can get you, join you in verse. It even actually automatically makes a friend request, right?
I also think that the request a guide button is on the Star Citizen homepage when you first launch the game. I think it's right there. So it should be it should automatically launch Spectrum on your default browser. You may have to log in again, right?
So above all else, if talking about find a friend, the guide system is the ultimate way to do that right out of the bat, because you've got somebody that knows the game, wants to help, and it immediately makes a new friend. It adds them to your friends list so that you can join into the verse together on the same server, and then they can talk you through stuff. And a lot of time, like when I would do guide sessions, I would usually invite them over to the Discord, and get them on voice so we could talk through everything. If they don't, if they're not comfortable with Discord or don't have Discord, then we try to use prox comms and in-game chat as much as possible. But it's definitely a good way to start out with at least one friend, your guide.
Absolutely. So the guide system, having a friend to play with, maybe a small group, huge game changer. You can play it by yourself, but there's so much more to be had if you play with a friend.
Absolutely.
The second thing is I think you should familiarize yourself with your mobiGlas pretty early on, right? Because that's where pretty much everything is. A question I see asked a lot in global chat is, how do I accept missions? How do I change the components on my ship? How do I do these fairly basic things? The answer is almost always mobiGlas.
Yeah. So there's some challenges with that. So with the mobiGlas, you have access to the whole thing the moment you get out of bed, right? Which is great. Right now, one of the problems is even if you just got right out of bed and immediately started just kind of browsing through and exploring the mobiGlas, which I think you should do. I agree. There are some things that you're not going to be able to do right off the bat. For example, you're not going to really understand how the vehicle loadout app works because all of your ships are not yet delivered. They're not at your location yet. So
that's true.
So there are some things there.
But you can at least you make a solid point, right? You can't change your ships because nothing's there. You can at least see that the vehicle loadout manager is there.
Yeah, but
you can see that there's the drop down menu. Yeah,
I mentioned it because it'll be confusing because it's like, I've got no ships. Where's my ship? I don't understand.
And that's a valid point. Just to kind of sidetrack and just describe what he means there. 3.18 introduced persistent entity streaming. We kind of talked about that. Part of what they had to do to make some of their functionality work is they had to change how the ship delivery system worked for an initial login. It was overloading servers just to have all of the ships ready to go at your home location ASOP terminal. So they basically stored them in an ethereal state, and you have to go to the space station and have them delivered. It's an instantaneous thing, but that's just the way they did it to help reduce the load.
If you were not so much the person with one ship that they had a problem with.
Yeah, it's people like Phaedron who have 3 or 4 of everything.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you are loading in for the first time and you are trying to familiarize yourself with the mobiGlas, and you go to that vehicle loadout manager, you click that drop down, you'll see your ship there, but it's going to have like a little padlock on it. You're not going to be able to do anything with it. That's why you actually have to go to the spaceport, find the ASOP terminal, and have it delivered. And that unlocks the functionality to change.
I guess you will see it with the padlock, so you'll at least see that it's in. Okay, yeah, never mind. I take
you'll see it.
Concern.
It'll
for some reason I had it in my head that in the mobiGlas it would be empty, but it's not. It's just locked.
I think when they first launched it, it was that way, and then they revised it. They've been revising that whole,
and they will for the next handful of years.
That's the biggest thing for anybody starting out. Is the biggest thing with this game is everything changes constantly because we're in alpha.
Oh, yeah.
They're revising systems, they're improving on things, they're adding new things, they're replacing old things. So like every 3 months.
Resign yourself to the knowledge of maybe I'm feeling like it's 3 things. First, You're going to lose all your things because they're going to wipe you eventually. It's going to happen. Just know it. It's not even a maybe. It will happen. You're gonna be running into bugs, and it's gonna be a rough experience, especially when you're first starting and you're figuring out how to set up your system so that it's not, so that it actually runs. And 3, the game that you play now is not the game that you're going to be playing in 6 months to a year. It's going to
Agreed.
be,
And
it's
that
going to be
kind of,
different.
I think that's a good segue to my third point, right? Is it's very important to get into this game with that mentality that it's not finished. It's in active development, so it's always changing. Bugs are rampant. Gear fear is not to be tolerated in this game because you're going to lose everything you have. It's just how this game works. It's going to happen. Won't always be that way, but for the foreseeable future, it will be. So approaching this game with a mindset that whatever you could spend 6 hours playing and grinding and lose it all just like that, and it could even just not even be your fault. It could be because of a crash to desktop or a 30K or a bug that where there's invisible debris. You crash your ship that's got all of your belongings and it just blows up and you lose it. Right?
Yeah, it could be a bad decision to take all your money and load up a cargo ship with a load of something. Interdicted pirates,
But
done.
your ship
Yeah.
is insured, so you'll always have that.
Yeah,
That's
And they
true.
always give you almost always give you a free flight suit and helmet, so you're never completely without your
Stranded. Yeah. Yeah. So
It's-
at the
yeah.
very least, you should have access to your ship, even if you've only got one, and be able to reach it with that flight suit and helmet. So you're never going to be completely stranded, but it is going to happen that you feel like you've just lost everything and more. It's not to say that there can't be good days. Star Citizen has bred some of the best gaming experiences I've ever had, but I've had days where I've been like, why the hell do I play this game? Because it fucking sucks sometimes.
When the
um,
server gods decide to frown on you, yes, it's time to go play something else for a little bit and
yeah,
shake it off and take a breather and circle back to it. Because when
yeah,
when the game is firing on all cylinders and you're on a good fresh server and everything's running great, it's a beautiful experience. Um,
agreed. Especially
so
when you start playing with friends and guys get to do things like combined arms combat experiences. We got guys on the ground and guys flying fighters up in the air, and man, it's really really cool.
yeah,
Protostari here says definitely need a plan B game to take a break. He's right. I mean, there's a lot of people who play Star Citizen exclusively. Typically, I'm one of them. Um, but it is totally okay and even encouraged to step back, breathe, give it a couple weeks,
yeah. I'd say no
and
matter what game
just
you're playing, that's true.
yeah,
yeah.
it's just don't be afraid to step back, man. If you're feeling like, man, I don't want to play Star Citizen, then don't. Right? Because if you have a string of those bad luck days, it gets super super easy to feel burnt out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who play once every 6 months just because they want to
Yeah,
see, hey, what's come in, what are they doing now, and then they
I
go
mean,
back
for a
to
lot of years
Modern
that was me.
Warfare. Or, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I would check in once a year. Like since I pledged back in 2012, I would check in like once a
wow,
year and just kind of see where they're at. And it
yeah.
wasn't
Phaedron's
until I
old
think
money.
it wasn't until about like 2019, 2020, something like that, when the game really started taking off and had a lot more content and was a lot bigger and a lot more
Yeah,
people
we started in
playing.
311, and from what I understand, that's right about where it started to kind of ramp up.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
They
but
had
by 313 they had a lot of good mission systems in place, and the
Mhm.
reputation system I think came in, so that gave it more of an MMO
Something like
feel.
that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Rep came in like 315 or something, but
No, rep
it,
was at like 312, 313,
yeah.
100%.
I'll take your word for that.
Yeah.
I don't have the roadmap in front of me, but
yeah. I feel like we actually showed up at 311. That's what you
we
said,
did.
right? Yeah,
We did. Yeah, 311. Stopped around 25. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the 3.0 was like the big one that kind
Yeah.
of unlocked most of the game. Yeah, so that's kind of my big 3 points. Beyond that, it's just tips and tricks for staying geared and trying to minimize your frustrations. Things like having extra gear sets purchased and ready to go. Um, remembering to set your med bed. That's a really important one. If you travel across the system looking to get into trouble and something happens and you die and you haven't set your med bed, suddenly you got to travel across the entire system again.
Yeah. So to be clear on that, you're when you first spawn in, your med bed is already set to the place where you first log in, right, to your home location. But at most stations and all of the other major cities on the planets, you can go to the clinic or the hospital and set your location there so that you spawn in that location instead of back at your original planet. So, for example,
Right. When
if
you
your
die,
home planet is like ArcCorp and you're wanting to do missions around Yella because there's plenty of them, then maybe you'll set your medbed at Grim Hex, which is around Yella, or even at Seraphim Station, which is around Crusader, which is the planet that moon is surrounding, so that you don't have to go as far. It's super important to pay attention to that, or else you just frustrate yourself.
Yeah, the thing to note is as you move around the universe, like inventory is localized. So there's obviously the stuff that you put on you, stuff that you put in your ship, and stuff that you put in your home location. Those aren't accessible from everywhere. You have to actually go to those locations, either go to that ship where you stored something, or check your pockets. If you take off that gear, that stuff will still be in your pockets.
You mean I can't check my fridge at home when I'm at work?
Yeah. No. Yeah, it's
man.
as they say, they're bringing it to the point of realism and then bring it back to fun. We're in that point of pushing to that realistic thing where your inventory is matters, and it's physicalized in the universe, and if you set it down somewhere, it's there. So if you come back and nobody else has touched it, it'll be there still.
Yeah.
Chris Roberts.
Maybe they'll set up a system where you can employ like a courier system to say, hey, gather up all the stuff that I have on that location and courier it here. Okay, great. That'll be an 8-hour trip, and you'll have it or whatever.
Yeah,
that'd be.
I'd love to see those kind of delivery missions.
I hope that's true, right? Because I would love to, if I'm deep in Pyro, right, and I have a bunch of shit in Stanton, and I'm like, man, I'm in the middle of something. I'm not gonna have time today to go all the way across system, through the jump gate, across Stanton, and back. Like, I don't want to waste an hour and a half doing that. I'd love to just be able to go boop, doot, 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 and hire somebody. I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah, basically, well, because I know, like in EVE Online, they had something similar to that, where you would put something on consignment. You would basically package up something to be transported across the galaxy, and the person, and then it would be a contract that somebody could accept. They would put down collateral and whatnot, and then deliver your item from one side of the galaxy to the other, and it would be packaged. So it wasn't like they could rifle through it or anything. It's just a commodity at that point that they just move like any other mission. And
it's like a locked box or something.
Yeah. And obviously you can set the value of the package. So they would have to put up that amount of money to insure it. And then they would get paid out whatever you offered to pay out above what they put in for that. And then they would get their deposit back, as well as the fee for actually successfully delivering it. And obviously, if they blow up with it or steal it or do anything with it,
then you get paid out.
Yeah,
I mean that would be a really cool system, I think. But I think that's kind of diverting from the topic
a little bit. As we do
that's
sometimes.
Okay. Speculation is a part of Star Citizen. So as you get into the game and start making your friends, just know that item 4, people are going to talk about stuff that doesn't exist yet and about how it might
all the time.
That's. If you're not talking about that, it's half playing. It's half of the point of playing is the speculation.
Yeah, I agree. It's cool to watch it unfold and to be like, oh, I think that's gonna happen. Oh, I think that's gonna happen.
But I mean, there are people in the verse that if you chat in global, so you hit, you get the chat box open, you hit enter, you type out, hey, I need XYZ at someplace, like I need burritos and drinks. There are people that will, for very cheaply, go do that for you. They will deliver a burrito and drinks. You got to have the right people in global, because sometimes people will just be like, you're an idiot and get it yourself. But
or they'll say, yeah, I'll deliver your burrito and drinks. Sure, buddy. Yeah, and then they'll deliver that with a spray of lead on the way.
Yeah. But that's the big thing is keeping an eye on global and chatting with people in global, and obviously ask questions in global. A lot of times the community is very friendly about that, about answering questions. So it's a good resource to tap if you're just starting out. But again, I can't stress the guide system is probably my number one recommendation for any new player is hit that up, because there's a lot of great people that dedicate their volunteer their time to show new people the ropes, and it's a great way to just jumpstart it and get all your questions answered.
I feel like CIG needs to create a Spectrum app for the phone. That way, like, guides can be notified via their phone that somebody's looking for a guide, and then it wouldn't time out so fast. Because
So like the way because you gotta have Spectrum open for you to even hear the notifications, and it's got to be off to the side, and yeah, a better way to notify would be great for the guides themselves.
yeah, it's a
But
little
yeah,
bit
like I've
beside the
had great
point, but I wanted
success
to throw
just
it out there.
just leaving Spectrum open on on the side, and just waiting for that ding that somebody somebody signed up.
They just need to fast track integrating Spectrum with the game.
Yeah, that would be, and like some kind of API access, maybe a mobile app.
Yeah,
for
so you
sure.
register on Spectrum, and then it's like, oh, I'm in the game. Good enough. They check on the game. Hey, I need a guide. In game, bing, so and so needs a guide.
Yeah,
perfect.
I know that there's a little bit of communication, right? Because the friends list transfers to Spectrum. If you're in game and somebody's on Spectrum, it'll tell you they're on Spectrum. So I know that they can communicate.
Oh, of course they
right?
can.
They can definitely communicate. But I agree. Putting the Spectrum functionality into a mobiGlass app would be awesome.
Some of it, yeah. I mean, obviously not everything, but some of it. When
I think that's their plan, right? I don't want to say for sure, but I think that's their plan.
It's like
Spectrum is like the in-lore, like, internet, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that eventually they're gonna integrate at least the orgs, I believe, right? So that org structure and stuff will exist within the game. So I mean, it would make sense that hopefully they're looking at some of these other integrations that I think would bring a lot of value to the players.
I agree.
So as far as circling back to getting started, obviously the mobiGlass and the contracts is your gateway to content, right? You want to figure out how to make money in the verse, you go to the contracts. The number one is delivery missions package. It's really simple. It gets you familiar with navigating the universe, takeoffs and landings, interacting with the world, grabbing a box, taking it somewhere, and dropping it off.
Yep,
probably do
some
that.
Of the easiest, some of the fastest.
Yeah,
to get
I still
safe.
do. I've been playing this game for years, and every once in a while, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to take my big ass ship and go deliver a package, because it's something random to do, because it does also take you to locations that you normally wouldn't find on your own. So it gets you out into areas that don't have markers and things like that outside of a mission marker, right? So
yeah,
package delivery missions are always good.
So one of the things I like about doing them is actually just taking like a whole bunch of them and then seeing all of the locations you're supposed to go and try to optimize a route of pickups and drop-offs. I don't know how many people do that, but I mean that's yeah, right. I mean it's maybe step 2 of delivery missions, where I've basically got 15 boxes I need to pick up and deliver. So then I just like work out even before I pick up the first box. Okay, so what's my route look like? And just seeing if I can manage the route.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, beyond that, right? So I feel like after you kind of get the hang of delivery missions, there's kind of a wide, increasingly wide scope of things for you to do. And some of it revolves around combat, which a lot of people like. Some of it revolves around the kind of rise and grind mentality, like the old school RuneScape guys. They grind for hours. There's gameplay to suit that sort of mentality too.
Yeah.
So I feel like at this point,
so many options, a lot of options, right? That I don't even play, right? Like the investigation missions and just like so many.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned the investigation missions, and I'll circle back to what I was saying in just a minute. But the mission content team has been hard at work for the last year or so, developing pretty much exactly that. Different, private investigator missions. Uh, it- the investigation missions were actually a huge point of conversation for them. They were talking about, oh, we're going to have these dynamically generated missions that have different kind of evidence where you have to go around and it will start to build out this story and you have to kind of solve these things and it's like a multi-level, multi-location sort of thing. And it sounds pretty fun. It's pretty basic right now, but they're working pretty hard on that. And I think that those sorts of missions are going to come out with Pyro because they talked about having even more content for Pyro than they do in Stanton, and the mission content team is a huge part of that. But right now, right there's I'm gonna oversimplify this kind of big time and say that there's pretty much three schools of thought right now. Um, there's combat, which kind of goes into its own tree, right? And then there's like mining and salvage. Those are like the three big ones right now. And mining and salvage honestly are pretty similar in their approach. They have a couple different ships and they do operate differently on a specific level, but the
And
idea is the same.
that's the key point, though, is they require specialized ships.
They do.
So if
And
you're
that's kind of
starting
what
out
I
on a
was going to say.
Mustang, you don't want to take salvage or mining missions because
Well, I
you'll
wouldn't
need
even
you
say
need to
that,
ship
right?
that.
I wouldn't even say that, right? I'm saying like after you kind of go through these delivery missions, you kind of get a feel for your ship. Maybe you start making a little bit of money. There's levels to all of this, right? Even if you do want to get into mining or salvage, you don't need a specialized ship to do it because there are tools for it,
You can do hand
right?
mining. You can do hand
That's
salvage.
exactly what I'm saying. There is part of the new player experience. I'll say right now, the Pyro multi tool is your best friend. Don't know why we didn't say this earlier, but the multi tool is like if you had to choose between a multi tool and a gun, take the multi tool every time. Right.
And get all of the attachments. Get your tractor beam
Yeah.
attachment. Get your cambio attachment. Get your mining attachment.
Yeah, the cambio is the salvage attachment, by the way, just so you're aware. Yeah, so tractor beam, mining, salvage. There's also a medical one, which is hit or miss on
Oh,
if it
yeah.
actually works. Sometimes it breaks.
Yeah,
There's
but
also a cutter, which doesn't work as far as I know.
there's
Point is,
a dedicated medical gun though. I wouldn't worry about that
there
one.
is. Well, there's also dedicated tractor beam and dedicated salvage hand tool, but
Oh, is there?
we'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there.
Oh, tractor beam.
But anyway, this multi tool is the most basic functionality of a wider range of tools. And this is the tool that you would use to start taste testing these different blue collar fields. With the cambio salvage attachment, you just slip it right on in there and you can start hull scraping ships. It's probably best used with smaller ships because it doesn't have a huge capacity, but it has these little canisters that you can fill up and swap out.
Yeah, you do have to
filling those
buy
up.
the empty canisters separate.
Yeah.
So those are separate from the salvage attachment.
But it gives you a taste. You find derelict ships or you prank your friends and start drawing dicks in their holes. But the point is you can experience the salvage gameplay for virtually nothing by buying that attachment and going out and experiencing it. You can do that in your Mustang. Same goes with mining. You can put in this little mining attachment, just slides in the top there, and then you can take your little Mustang and you can go on the surface of a planet or a moon and find little clusters of like gem deposits. You can
Get a
break those with
backpack.
your hand tool. Yeah. Get a backpack, put them in your bag, take them back, sell them. These are entry level missions, and I feel like they are best used for getting a taste for if you like the content. They're not huge money makers, but it's a good way to experience it without having to spend your hard-earned credits or your cash on a specialized ship like Phaedron was talking about.
Yeah.
If you did want to go above and beyond, then maybe we'll have another video sometime on taking those next steps. But right now, we're just talking about the new player experience. If you wanted to get involved with combat, there's two major branches to that, right? There's the ship combat, which is primarily going to be like bounty hunting, where you're in your ship, you're tasked with going and clearing, basically killing another person in a ship, usually an NPC. Or there's the FPS combat, which is where it'll take you down to probably an underground bunker where you got to land, get inside the facility, and clear out the hostiles. Right? Pretty self-explanatory stuff. And both of those you can get into with virtually nothing. Your starter ship
Yep.
or a cheap set of gear, both very easy to get into.
Which you start out with an arc light. That's all you need.
You do. The inventory system is pretty intuitive. So if you manage to take even just your base flight suit, your helmet, and your arc light, if you are good enough at FPS, then you can emerge with 5 to 10 sets of full gear, because every time you down an NPC, you can completely strip them.
And looking exactly
Uh,
like somebody that everybody wants to kill.
yep.
Be careful where you wear that armor, but you can wear it. It's just you look like
Yep.
the bad guys, which some people like.
So we've been talking about what you do once you get in the game, and there was Phaedron mentioned earlier, and I was planning on bringing up anyway. The hardware side of things. What do you need in order to actually get in the game? What kind of expectation should you have as a starting player with regard to how well will your computer work, right? If there's some changes and upgrades that you need to do to your computer to get it the game to run decently well so that you have a good experience, what kind of things would you guys say is important to consider on the hardware side of things just to get started?
The most important thing to consider is that Star Citizen is not optimized at all. So even if you have a $10,000 PC, and it's better recently, but you could spend infinite amount of money on your machine and you're always going to have noticeably worse performance than pretty much any other game out there because it's not optimized.
Yeah.
But the two big things that in my experience are important currently is one, Star Citizen is very RAM intensive. So at the very least, you need 16 gigs. At the very least. I mean, I highly recommend at least 32.
Yeah.
Because I've got 32 right now, and if I monitor my usage and stuff, Star Citizen will consistently pull 21 to 24 gigs of RAM at any point in time. It's eating it up, right? So 32 is recommended. 16 is bare minimum to even play. That's just how it is. The second thing is that because Star Citizen is not optimized, it leans very heavy on your CPU instead of your GPU. So
that's been changing. That's been changing.
It has been. It has been. They're slowly integrating the Gen 12 rendering system in the Vulkan API, and it is.
I think they're done with
fixing
that
a lot of
actually.
things.
So there's the CPU bottleneck is less of a thing now.
Vulkan's not all the way in. I know that.
A majority of it is.
I ran into something today that I want to specifically mention. So when you get into the game, right? Especially if you have any expectation that you're going to be alt-tabbing out of the game, switching back and forth, right? For the love of all that's holy, go into your options, go into your graphics, switch to borderless.
Yeah.
Because if you allow your game to be full screen, as soon as you do like alt-tab or something, your CPU usage is going to spike. Your system's going to just lock up. It'll probably clear up if you sit down and like maybe walk away for 5-10 minutes, but just switch it to borderless. You'll have a much better experience.
So
yeah, I don't even know why full screen's an option anymore.
Yeah,
just let everybody go borderless.
If there's more things to talk about hardware wise, let's do it. But after talking about hardware, you talked about switching to borderless. I think that we should kind of go through that graphics setting list and just breeze through it and show people some optimized Star Citizen settings to
do you want to show
their
them
performance. Yeah, I'm actually booting up the game right now, so give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to change your settings to maximize performance while minimizing your immersion loss. It's booting up right now, but I'll kind of go through my own settings, which may not be the exact same settings that you want to have for yours, because I've got a bit of an older machine. So I've got some settings changed where if you've got a newer machine, you might, bump them up or change them in general. Aegis, he's in chat. He just balled out on our new machine, and his settings are going to be different than mine for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's usually one of the big things to understand is because the game is always constantly changing, guides that are put out for the game sometimes might always be up to date. So whenever you like YouTube or Google something, always include the patch number. So like right now we're currently in 3.22. If you do Star Citizen 3.22, like optimizations for my PC, or how do I get started, or put in what the build number is. So 3.22 is what we're currently
Yeah.
in. I would include that. That improves your results and gives you more current stuff. And
Right.
Right.
yeah, there's
I would
always
also
going to
say
be
with
there's
I
always
would
going to
also
be
say with that.
guides like that for how best to optimize for your specific hardware.
Yeah. So with that, it's going to be more difficult to find optimizations for the most recent version. So like we're in 3.22, it's going to be very hard to find good optimizations for 3.22, but you might be able to find pretty good optimizations for 3.20, 3.19, which isn't really that far removed. So they might be pretty good. They might be missing the mark because of some changes that have come in the past couple of patches, but they're going to be pretty good. If you find optimizations for 3.2, 3.3, maybe not so much, because that's pretty far
That's
removed,
way old.
right?
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of suggestions or optimizations for recent patches, but be wary as those numbers get older that maybe they're not as effective as you might hope them to be.
Yeah.
Right. I've got my own
Oh,
graphics settings up
cool.
now. If we wanted to just take a quick look.
You know what? Let's go ahead and go. Oh, we can barely see it. It's kind of blurry, unfortunately. Anyway, go ahead and talk about it. We'll see if we can see what we can do.
Everybody should have on, right?
Oh,
I have my resolution set to just my native resolution. I think other people have been able to reduce the resolution without it like shrinking on the screen, but I find every time I reduce my resolution, it shrinks on my screen, and that really sucks. So I don't do it. Um, Window mode. This is what he was talking about right here. Is borderless, right? If you go full screen, then the game itself has a tendency to crash if
hey,
you like Alt Tab.
real quick, can you back out and show how to get into this screen?
Oh yeah, I mean, I
So,
put
like, as you're sitting
options.
here, options, graphics. Uh,
Yeah, graphics.
Anyway, so yeah, it's difficult to read what we're actually saying here, but the point is we want you to see it's just right there up in front. Options, get to this tab, and they're pretty easy to get to, even if you can't really
And
read very
if
well
you're
what we're looking at.
if you're already in game, it's just hitting escape, and then there's a way to get to options when you're in game. So from the menu, there's a big options button, gets you right here. When you're in game, you hit escape and you can get to the options that way as well.
Yep. A couple of like super basic ones that I think everybody, even guys with top end PCs, should probably turn those off. Right.
Ugh.
If you really like it, keep it on. Right. But I always turn motion blur off. VSync. There's very little reason to have VSync going. Um, Volumetric clouds is one of those ones where if you've got like a really top end PC, you can keep them on. If you're running on a little bit of a potato, maybe turn them off. The biggest difference you'll see is Crusader being a gas giant will look drastically different. It's just kind of an orange blob, which is unfortunate. You can turn those on low, or I guess there's into low, but medium. And they'll be a little bit grainy, but that's just because it's a tier 0 cloud tech. Um, I actually this is a new one for me. Space shadows, haven't messed with that, but I just like to keep things like shadows and stuff low. I don't see much of a difference. Another thing, the quality, right? This is kind of a general overall quality. I was talking a little bit before about Star Citizen being kind of heavy on the CPU side of things. Phaedron says it's been fixed. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't.
Yeah.
Up until now, at least so far, um, the lower you turn your settings, the idea is that the less it loads your GPU. Well, the way it does that is by picking on your CPU to kind of make up for it. And so it was always recommended that you run the highest settings possible because you want it to load your GPU instead of your CPU. So maybe I'll toy around with that and figure out how that works. But I've just kept my settings very high just to make sure that the GPU is what's getting prioritized there. Um, Otherwise, I just have pretty much low settings on everything else, and I'm playing in 3440, and I still have just fine resolution. It's definitely not potato mode, right? There's not a whole lot of sacrifice here by reducing some of these settings. It's still going to be a fantastic looking game, and I boosted my frames by 30 or 40% probably.
I'll probably have to get in there and make some adjustments on my own because I don't get those kind of frame rates, and I feel like I should have a system that can pull off better than I get. So it might be that I'm not optimized, or I haven't made adjustments that would make sense for me.
Yeah, even on the high end systems, sometimes little tweaks here and there with certain things help. Especially if your graphic card has its own control panel for tweaking stuff. So again, I would encourage looking for guides on best optimizations for the hardware you have. CPU, GPU.
Yeah. There's
Um,
also like a couple of things that I don't actually know if it makes any difference. Some people have said that if you increase your page file size on Windows to match your RAM, it helps. I
yes.
don't. I've heard yes. I've heard no.
Yeah.
I did it just because it doesn't negatively affect me, as far as I know. And if it does help, then
Well,
it's worth it.
and it's if
That-
you
that-
have
that-
lower RAM. So like if you're in the 16 to 32, 16 definitely you want to do like a 32 gig page file somewhere on a separate drive than the game is running, if you have it, because that definitely helps. You won't notice it if you've got 32 and higher gigs of RAM, just because the game already has all the RAM it needs. It doesn't need a swap file to bolster, a smaller RAM. So
Yeah, I mean, but there's a whole bunch of tips and tricks, probably more so than you would have to take in most other games to try and squeeze the extra few frames out. But with Star Citizen, at least in its current state, anything that you can do to help will definitely help.
and you can also, so on robertspaceindustries.com, there's an app called Telemetry. So you can go robertspaceindustries.com/telemetry, and it'll show you your system specs compared to everybody else that plays, and show you where on a nice little graph where you fall in that, in between everybody. And that might help as well, kind of determining what do I need to boost to get better frame rates like everybody else. So
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Really?
can put that in chat or something. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That
You didn't
telemetry
know
site
about
was a thing.
telemetry? Man, I learned about telemetry early on.
Yeah, no, I really didn't. Yeah, that's mostly it, right? I feel like everybody's Star Citizen experience is going to vary. So just making sure that you've got a friend, making sure that your settings are optimized. Um, I think that's two of the biggest things. Making sure that you familiarize yourself with the mobiGlass. I don't think that there's really anything else super
Oh,
noteworthy that's not case specific.
we had talked about getting started. Like, so you're on the website going, this looks like a great game I want to play. There's two options. Again, there's waiting for a free fly, so you
Right.
don't put any money down, or you go to the pledge store and pick up a game package. And there's lots of different ships, and it's probably really confusing to look at. So again, you probably want to hit up a guide to give you some tips on the ships. But overall, like
Yep.
there's a lot of good options for what you're in it. So like right now, I think it's the base game package with a ship is $45.
I think so.
There's
I think
obviously sales
there's
during the
two
year where you can
options
get that a
there.
little cheaper.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, so let's you're right. Let's have a little conversation about that.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people who come and go free fly to free fly.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a really good thing and kind of a really bad thing. I'll explain that a little bit. It's good because you can download and play the game absolutely free. They give you a short list of ships that you don't have to buy in game or with cash, and you can just get in them, fly, and experience everything the game has to offer. There's no limits. You could, if you can grind out, a week or so and make 100 million credits and buy every ship in the game, you can do it. Right? There's no limits.
Well, usually free flies are, I mean, obviously limited to, like, I think it's usually a week, maybe 10 days.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But if you can
Yeah.
accomplish that in 7 to 10 days, then the game will let you. Right? There's no hard
Yeah.
caps on anything, so you can experience everything the game has to offer. The kind of shitty part, in my own experience, is that because there's an influx of testers coming in for free flies, and free flies also tend to align with like in-game events and stuff, such as the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo or Invictus Launch Week or Christmas with the gift hunts and stuff, there's an increased load on the servers. They like to run things like Jump Town and Siege of Orison during free flies, which increases the load of the servers. So
and there's
it's
an
cool because
increase of number. There's also an increase of number that come in just to dick around. And that can sometimes be a detriment to the experience.
Yeah.
But, so definitely, if you do play during a free fly, just know that the servers are usually more stable when all you free folk leave.
It's true. It really, really is. So the free fly is a blessing and a curse because it's exactly right. You get to try everything, but the servers are on fire. And if Star Citizen is something that you are seriously considering getting into, now's the time, because it's less than a new AAA title video game to get started. And if you play, and if you play outside of those free flies, the servers will calm down a little bit, become a little bit more stable, and you get to experience Star Citizen as it is day to day,
and
without the hustle and bustle.
If all things happen the way the hype is saying right now, we're about to hit like an incremental increase in content and systems. So if you want to see all of that stuff being developed, being added to the game, now is really the time to do that, because we're talking new systems, we're talking like new star systems, the implementation of the Stargates, etc., etc., etc. Things that don't exist now.
Next couple of years are going to be really interesting.
It's going to be a vastly different game, and if you want to see that, then now's the time to hop in.
6 months from now is going to be a vastly different game. 6 months from that is going to be a vastly different game, and 6 months from that is going to be a vastly different game. But the next couple of years are going to be insane.
just another thing I remembered, there is a 30-day refund, I think, policy on starter.
I think it's 2 weeks.
Is it 2 weeks?
I think it might be 30-day, and I think it's because of European law.
Maybe.
Yes. So worst case, you put down the $45, you play for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and you're like, nah, I don't like it. You can get your money back. There is a refund policy.
Aegis says y'all should touch on, you don't need big ships. People have plenty of big ships. People will always need crew. That is an excellent point to touch on. I feel like there's a lot of stigma around Star Citizen because they see people spending $1,000, $10,000, $40,000 on this game, and they say, well, why the hell would I spend that kind of money, right? Like, I can't believe I need to spend $1,000 to play the game. Well, one, you don't, right? You don't. 2, you can, if you feel like supporting the project, spend that much and get a lot of big ships. But herein lies a big problem, right? The more people who have those big ships, I feel like the less likely they are to be able to crew them. Okay. I'm going to talk about our org for just a minute, just to kind of explain this example, right? Our org has 175 members, and that's total members. That's not active members. That is total members in the last 3 years of enlistment. We probably have 20 to 25 rotating active at a time, and I feel like I'm being a little generous when I say that. We've got a lot of big ships. Got capital ships. We probably have 10 to 15 capital class ships. These are the ships that are designed to run with 24 crew at a time. Okay. I know for a fact that our group will not be able to field that many ships.
Right? We're going to have a hard time crewing a single one of the big ones. If we are, I don't think we'll be able to crew one of the javelins.
Well, I don't want to get too into that conversation, but my point is, right, is that I actually encourage people to not spend money on ships, right? Do not feel pressured to do that, because even if you only have your $45 ship, that will not take away from your ability to enjoy the gameplay that comes with these big $1,000 ships. You're still going to be able to have plenty of fun on somebody's Kraken. On somebody's Idris, on somebody's Javelin. There's always going to be room for you.
That you only need to spend the $45 or $40 or whatever the starter package of the month is, and you can earn in game the money to buy all of these ships.
This is
right?
also true.
So like pledging for the bigger people like me that have spent more money on, buying the bigger ships and basically supporting the project and, ensuring that I have what I want when I want it. And that came from, I just didn't want to spend all the time, that much time grinding, especially in alpha where we're constantly, resetting.
And yeah.
And there's at least one more wipe coming, right?
At least.
But
I think there's at least two.
When Star Citizen is considered feature complete and released to the public, they're going to wipe before that. We're not keeping anything that we build up in alpha, except for what we paid for, right? With real cash. But you can earn all these ships in game by spending money, except for the Saber Raven.
Yeah, and the Mustang Gamma.
Yeah.
There's a couple. There's a couple of like limited ships. You can't get the Dragonfly Yellow Jacket in game either.
Yeah, but you can't buy those anymore either.
True.
Yeah,
true.
they were like
for them
special
anymore.
Promotions. You had to buy an Intel drive and you got a ship with it and all that. But yeah, so you can earn everything in game. That's always been the plan from the beginning. Is you pledge whatever you sign up for the game. You buy your one ship and use that one ship to earn the rest in game.
Yeah,
or crew somebody else's ship.
So
you never have to spend any more money.
True. We're about out of time, but there is one more thing that I would just like to say, right? And let's brush up on the available starter packs. Give a quick, pros and cons. Which ones do we recommend and why? Off the top, I don't have it up, right? But off the top of my head, we've got the Mustang Gamma starter pack and the Aurora. Those are the two cheapest ones.
Mustang Alpha.
Right? Mustang Alpha, excuse me.
Yeah, those
Mustang
right,
Alpha and Aurora.
Currently, those are the two cheapest starter packages, the Aurora and the Mustang at 45.
45. The absolute cheapest, that's the least money that you can spend to purchase your right to play the game as well as have a ship. Beyond that, we kind of hit a next tier where in that you've got ships like the Avenger Titan, which is a great ship.
Yeah, that's kind of a higher tier. So
it's
right now it's
getting up there.
So next is the C8X Pisces and the Cutter.
That's what I was going to talk about all those too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is you got the Avenger Titan at 70, I think. You got the Cutter
75.
You got the Cutter, you have the Pisces at 70, you have the Sulin.
Those are 60.
60.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I've got it up so I can see it. Matter of fact,
well, you've got it up. You talk. You've got it up.
Yeah. So the Aurora MR and the Mustang Alpha both at 45. Again, he's right that those are the least expensive. Then the C8X Pisces and the Cutter. Cutter's a super popular ship. People are loving it these days. It's a great starter ship. It's got a lot of versatility.
My personal recommendation.
Yep. And then a single ship here at the 65 point range, which is the 100I. So that's more of a luxury kind of a cruiser ship. And then bumping up to the 75, we got the Avenger Titan, which is great because it's a pretty decent fighter ship. It has some cargo space, so it's a good ship to start with. Kicking right up into the Sulin, which is a new
alien ship.
A lot of people really like this one. It's got some external cargo. It's a really unique design. People really seem to enjoy this one. It's like this weird radially symmetrical upward pointing cool.
Not necessarily recommended for new pilots though, because it has some unique flight characteristics, and its takeoff and landing is unique compared to every other ship.
If you want to challenge right from the get-go, great, but it is a little unique. It's a
3-story Art Deco apartment that flies.
Yeah,
right.
That's my opinion on it.
And then the Arrow, which is even for veterans, is a really popular fighter ship. There's a starter pack with the Arrow fighter at 90, and then we start bumping up into like the Nomad at 95, the Cutlass Black, which is a wonderful starting ship at 125. Lots of cargo space. It's got the turret and the main pilot guns into some of these other ones. And a tractor beam. Then you got like the Freelancer, which is a starter full cargo ship. Nice large cargo bay for a starter. The Hornet F7C. I don't really care for the Hornet, but that one's sitting at another 125. onto the constellation Andromeda, which it's a sizable ship. Plenty of missiles, plenty of guns. We're talking.
Yeah, I think
that's
we're
kinda like buying
venturing beyond the
well,
starter
and that's
ship.
like if you're the
but
type
these are
of
all
person
technically
like me,
starter packs.
yeah, but like so, like the 275, that's kind of like buying the elite special edition of any game, right? You know,
Right.
if you're somebody like me, I usually go, what does the special edition of this game get? And I usually buy that. Like for Fallout 4, it was actually a power armor helmet. I was all over that. So if you're that type of person that has the income for it, Constellation Andromeda is not too bad for 275. It does pretty much a lot of different things, and it's a good place to start. You'll probably never like toss that aside, but like if you buy the Aurora, that's a ship you'll probably fly for a little bit until you can afford a different ship, and then never touch it again. Right.
Right. And that's kind of the trick, is if you go with the 45, you're probably going to fly it a little while, get something else, and then it'll sit in your hangar. Some of these other ones, there's a good chance you'll be flying that one for a good long time still.
Yeah, that's sort of why my personal recommendation is the cutter, right? So I think right now the only starter pack is the base cutter.
That's right.
I wish they would have a cutter Rambler starter pack, because that would be great. But the cutter has a fair amount of quantum fuel, so it's you can drive for a long time. It's got a bed, it's got a bathroom, it's got 4 SCU of cargo. It is basically a flying brick, but it has all of the basic amenities that you need to survive in the verse. You can live out of that ship. It might not be the most comfortable, but you can.
Yep.
And so that's kind of why it is my personal recommendation. You can kind of live out of an Aurora because it's got a bed, but if you wanted to have pretty much anything, you'd have to drop it on the floor in there, and it'd be super cluttered and uncomfortable. I think the Aurora is supposed to have like a sliding cargo box on the bottom of it at some point.
No, I think that's the Mustang. The Mustang Alpha has the cargo box. I don't think the Aurora does.
Maybe it is. I thought the Aurora did, but I could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be nearly as comfortable of an existence, right? So that's kind of why the cutter is my own recommendation.
Oh, 100%. All of those reasons are the same reason I usually recommend spending the extra $15, right, and getting the cutter, because it's a ship that you're probably going to keep around and use even as a veteran, right? Like, I've
been playing 3 years.
Yeah, I've got 100 ships. I fly my cutter a lot because it, number one, it claims at the ASOP terminals at space stations very quick, right? As do most of the starter ships. They have very low insurance claim times, so when it blows up, you hit claim, and it gets
it's like a minute and a half or something. It's not very long at all.
And like less if you pay the fee to expedite it, right?
Yeah, it's like 45 seconds or something. It's like less than 1,000 credits to expedite, right? So it's very cheap to maintain. It's cheap to get into. It's cheap to maintain. It's cheap to use, right? It's just all around one of the best starter ships.
It has the
I've
best,
ever had.
best range out of all the ships. Like, it has a really big fuel tanks.
Yeah, I think it's got like 1,000 fuel or something, right?
Like around 1,900. So
I thought that was the Rambler.
Maybe they've changed it.
I know that they have changed it. But the cutter still is among the best.
It really is.
Yeah,
it's a good
it can go twice as far as any of the other starter ships in its class, right? In the small ship class. Obviously, when you get up to the Cutlass Black, that's a different story because that's a larger ship.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say that when you're making your decision as to which ship you want, there is the consideration of, do you think you're going to want to use this ship to try to do some space combat? Because if so, Aurora, Mustang, just stick with those 45s. If you're thinking, nah, maybe I'll do box missions or something else to start with, and you want the slightly better ship that's a little more versatile, then absolutely the cutter. But that might be a consideration, because you're not going to be fighting in a cutter. I'm sorry, you're just not.
I mean, it can do some of the lower tier like bounty missions and things like that. It has okay firepower, and I've, as a veteran pilot, was able to work up to very hard targets.
Really?
Or VHRTs. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I stand
VHRTs were rough. VHRTs were rough, but low risk, medium risk, even high risk bounty targets were relatively easy. I mean, because it's a very tanky
Okay.
ship. The shields aren't great on it, but it's very tanky. And it has a lot of capacitor for the guns that it does have. I personally prefer to rip out the gimbals and upsize the guns one level for obviously more punch. But it's not bad in combat. I wouldn't take it into PvP. Well, I mean,
No.
I would PvP in anything, but it's not wouldn't be a preferred ship for PvP because it is a brick and it does maneuver a little slow compared to like the fighter, like an arrow or something like that. But yeah, it can hold its own to get you started into bounty missions for sure.
All right.
Well, I think that's pretty much all I have to say on the subject. Just to kind of touch back, guide system or find a friend, familiarize yourself with the Moby Glass, and prepare to get eaten by the bugs and the shitty days, and you'll be all right.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and get some of these links in the description for you. Watch for those. Appreciate everybody coming out and listening to us today. Thank you, Phaedron, for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time.
See you
Later,
in the
guys.
verse.